All right. Well, it finally happened. We had a Jose Martinez banger, and we've got lots of exciting stuff, including that to cover today on the One Team We Agree On. I'm Jillian.
And I'm Kyle.
And we have some special guests today.
Yes, we have two guests I've been talking to via social media, and you and I both listen to their vlog weekly. And they are Mike Barrera and Jose Nunez from across the pitch. And how are you guys doing tonight?
Good, guys. Appreciate you having us. I know Jose and I were excited all day to come online, so we're really thankful for you guys to finally reach out and we get to share a virtual room together and talk some Union.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, thank you for having us. I always kind of giggle and laugh a little bit at just how interconnected this spider web is of, Union fandom. And now with you guys hopping on as well as credential members of the press, the tendrils just go everywhere, right? So it's really interesting to sort of finally get together and start seeing one another more often than not.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It really is. And I think what's really I'm starting to find out more and more is a lot of us are starting to support one another within the press, going on everybody's pod. And I find that to be cool because, as you can see, I'm a Dolphins fan, and that doesn't happen. That does not happen in that fan base. I can tell you, and I will tell you when I see you guys this weekend, I'll tell you some stories because that does not happen. So it's really kind of cool to see that. I got to be honest.
Well, yeah, we don't even see that as much in the other sports with, like when I got asked by Todd on his pod recently, which team I liked better, and I actually went, he asked me what, Phillies or Union, and I went Union, and shocking, and I've been a Phillies fan my whole life, but I just feel so much more connected, honestly. So
yeah, no, I was actually going to say the same. I mean, I've been an Eagles fan, all that stuff for years.
Yeah,
and people ask me now, what's more important to us, the MLS Cup? Union. That's it. It's just it's a different culture, which I'm sure we'll talk about tonight and get more in depth with. So
absolutely. So before we get started, one of our traditions here, as everybody knows, is we say what we're wearing tonight. So gentlemen, what are you guys wearing tonight?
Jose, I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start. So I'm actually really happy that this still fits. It looks better when it's not zippered up, maybe because now I have the excuse of having two kids and not running quite as much as I used to, but it is a 2011 track jacket. So very, very early on, well before, I think like a year and a half before the Bimbo sponsorship came through. So I think a rare sighting when you see these across the stadium without any Bimbo branding whatsoever. So, and also, as Mike knows, representing the sponsor, Manscaped.
You have it too.
I must admit,
you use that, Kyle.
Hey, listen,
code
AAT
I'm not
Sports.
knocking it. I'm not knocking it. Okay.
No,
that's awesome.
They were kind enough to sponsor our podcast. So,
awesome.
And I must admit, again, part of being a dad of two, laundry days, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel when I have to wear a Manscaped shirt across Target all day. So,
love it. That's awesome. Well, Jillian, I know you're the fashionista of the Union community, so I had to go all out for this episode. So nice. I usually wear this hat when I'm podcasting, just a basic Philadelphia Union soul thing.
Yeah.
But today I went with the 15-year anniversary Sons of Ben hat.
Nice.
Kyle, I think, Kyle, you have the same baseball jersey as I do, right?
I love that. I love that. It's one of the most comfortable things. Like you said, you can wear it anytime. Like you can wear it at tailgate, you can wear it at house, you can wear it out in town.
If it's a little chilly, it's like a nice comfortable. Yep. It's the best $60 Union thing I've ever purchased. It was not overly priced, perfect little price. And then beneath that I have the Spanish version of the skull with the Union on, if you guys can see it, a little there. It keeps going though. I have the pajama pants. So I don't know if you can see this on camera. I got the pajama pants.
Sweet.
And I got the socks. I went
I love it.
Head to toe.
Love it, man. That's awesome.
If anybody has ever seen my collection, it is quite large in terms of clothing. So I had to go all out for you guys.
Oh my God, is
I
Jim
appreciate
Curtin
that.
in the room with us? Because
Yeah,
he's just
right.
like a walking billboard for the
Yeah, for real, for
store.
real.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's great. So good.
Yeah, so I'm wearing actually one of my new favorites, the Harley jersey from this year.
Mhm.
Yes, and Mikel Owen needs to sign that jersey because
Oh, but he had
that's
an
his hat
incredible
trick.
game wearing that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I'm wearing your birthday gift.
Yeah.
So this is one when the season kicked off. We went out, I think it was the Columbus game, and we were checking out all the new merchandise. And lo and behold, this is like one things that was reasonably priced, as I like to say, that I really, really enjoyed. So ended up getting this, and
Yeah, and if you're just listening and not on the video for this, it's navy blue with the Philadelphia Union with the smoke background in the letters. So we showed that last week on the pod, and
yeah,
like I said, I'll probably steal that too because I
oh,
like
you
it.
will steal that. I know
I
that.
like
That
to
is,
steal the stuff.
yeah.
The Union have such a great like variety of clothing now, and
Oh my
just
Sorry, we had
there you
technical
go.
difficulty.
We got that's the
Yes,
beauty
our
about.
cats. We
Wow.
didn't shut the cat out this time. Yeah.
I love it. My cat will probably do
Yes.
that soon. It's funny. No, the Union has such a great variety of clothing now. You know, back from when it
Yeah.
first started to now, it's like fashionable, and they have their own. I know they had last year. They had the I can't remember the brand that they had. They had those like sweaters, really nice sweaters, and just make it look more something you can wear on a weekly, daily basis to whatever function you want to go to. So I do love the gear now. Jillian, I do think I need to get that jersey though, because it is really sharp for sure. And they just take my money every single time I go to the stadium. I can't help
They
it.
really do. They
Yeah.
really do. Like we saw a T-shirt that they wore on the plane today, and I'm already like, I'm probably gonna end up buying that T-shirt.
that T-shirt is something very special. And to Mike's comment about the Philadelphia Union, and I don't know if this has to do with maybe Jim's involvement, if any whatsoever, but it seems like they sort of, and I maybe need to look into it more. Jillian and Kyle, you guys might know better, but it seems like Adidas and Mitchell and Ness, which is the brand you're referring to, Mike.
Yep.
They seem to pay a little bit more attention, just enough more attention to the Philadelphia Union to make their equipment, or I should say, their items from the store just that much different than everybody else, especially when we're falling into, Adidas using the same pattern for every single jersey every single year. It seems like Philadelphia just gets that little extra touch that makes it special.
Yeah.
And I don't know why or how, but I love it. And I think both of you will appreciate this. One of my favorite pastimes is actually scrolling through both eBay and Mercari looking for old Union gear and just seeing, especially during the fire sale of 2020, where I was just acquiring pieces left and right. If I was in my basement, you'd be able to see some of the jerseys hanging on the wall, but making sure my 5-month-old golden retriever is not chewing through any sofas right now. But yeah, no, I must admit, something that really sets you guys apart is sort of talking about this type of stuff that I know we don't, and could we? Absolutely. But I obviously it's a lane that you guys know much better than we do.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things why we wanted to start this podcast. Granted, we had some people along the way that kind of gave us some ideas. I had already had a Las Vegas history podcast that is on hiatus, as I've said. But we thought, like, how can we get the normal fan, the person that maybe doesn't talk the X's and O's, maybe doesn't,
people like me.
Yeah, like how can we get people excited about the Union, because this is a very special time in the club's history. So, and it's a team that means a lot to us. So we just kind of started putting some thoughts together. She came up, we collaborated on the idea, and lo and behold, now we're 33 episodes in. So,
well, listen, you guys are doing something right, because Reddit, I don't know if you guys go through it from time to time. You guys got some recommendations from folks about the podcast. So congratulations. We didn't come up once. So there's that.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, I did see that.
I always say this, having done this in this profession, I understand how difficult this is. And, people always tell me, oh, anybody can do a podcast. Well, yeah, but if you want to make it quality, you got prep, you got to think about what you're doing, and having a background in, journalism and communication from Westchester, if you take it seriously, it's a fun job, but it's also, as you guys know, it's like you work, you work, but at the same time it's fun. And that's the way I look at it. And as long as this is fun, we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So let's get into some questions here. So both of you, how did you guys get into the Philadelphia Union?
Well, Jose, you've been a Union fan longer than me, so I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I've been part of this sort of from the beginning, and I'm not gonna stand here or sit down or whatever. I'm not gonna be in front of both of you and say that I was there with the Sons of Ben from the get-go. I hardly had any idea what they were, but when the announcement came through, I was so excited, having grown up in South America and lived there for 12 years of my life. Soccer has really been around me all around. All facets of my life really revolved around it, to the point that I think I still have some pictures of me with a soccer ball in my crib as I was growing up. So to hear that Philadelphia was getting a team, but also be sort of heartbroken because the year that they started was the year I had graduated high school and shipped off to Shippensburg University to pursue a history degree and secondary ed sort of certification. I endured the many, many drives from Shippensburg/Chambersburg to Chester, Pennsylvania, and I know you both are near the York area, so I think I'm correct in that. You guys are near York, right?
Well, we're in Lancaster, but we coach over in York.
Okay, so but you guys have done the long commute to the stadium back and forth. So having been sort of following the team all along, it's been really interesting to see the very, very highs that we've experienced over the last 3 to 4 years, but also have been through those very low lows of the Freddie Adu announcements or the Emboli announcements of a keeper that hardly did anything, never mind the patchwork and the roster over those really, really dark days where being above 8th place was a miracle. So sort of seen it in both ends and couldn't love it anymore, to be completely honest with you, and just really, really thrilled and hopefully someone pinches me soon and that this is true, right? That we're going to be this good for a while and hopefully it doesn't end anytime soon.
Absolutely. I love that answer, Jose. Yeah, for me, so if you guys listen to my show enough, you know that I'm a basketball fan and a football fan first, but I played soccer when I was about 11 through high school, and my two buddies were Sons of Ben early on, and they said, hey, you got to watch this game. You played soccer in high school. Come join us, whatever. So my first game was on July 29th, 2012 against the Revs. It was a 2-1 win. Jack Mack scored a goal in the 90th minute, and I was hooked. That was it. That's all it took. It took one game. I kept coming back. I went to the Open Cup finals at not Super Park. It was a Town Energy back then. And it kind of just grew on me ever since. And as I told you guys, a few minutes ago, it's now my number one passion, my number one team that I follow. I mean, I got them freaking tattooed on me, for Christ's sake. So it's now my life, So that's, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, I hear that a lot of times from people that, they go to their first game or something and they get hooked. That's how it was for us.
Yeah, the Atlanta game.
Especially me, who did not grow up a soccer fan. Despite my dad having been like semi-pro and, my siblings played, I played briefly and stuff, but like we were always more like into football and baseball and stuff. But I'll tell you what, like as soon as I went to a game, I was like, that was actually really, really fun. And I can get into this. And I've been trying to get my sister to come with me. She played soccer. She's actually a Shippensburg grad, by the way. So she played hockey for Ship. And so yeah, I'm like, oh man, Kendall, you would love it if you came to a game,
Yeah.
So and that's the thing, like you get so many people that are like, oh well, people that talk down about the Union, that are like 4 for 4 and whatever, and like actually go to a game and experience it, but
it's funny you mentioned the 4 for 4 anecdote, because I have a neighbor, and this is just how petty I am and maybe too involved into wanting to share the fandom of the Philadelphia Union.
Right.
I have a neighbor who has this massive truck, something that just honestly, I don't even know how it qualifies to be on the road, but he's got, the 4 stickers, right? And I went ahead and just shared an additional sticker, and that was that of the Philadelphia Union. Never made it to the truck. I don't know where the hell the sticker is, but at least I try to give him a sticker to make it 5 for 5.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Should see back of my car. I got all 5 on the back.
I'll tell you a funny story. So I had a guy was over here working on our heating system, and he saw the back of our car. I have like the SOB, and then I have a Union thing, and he's like, Philadelphia Union, huh? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh man, I've been to a couple games this year. And all of a sudden I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. I go, you listen to Union podcast? And I forget which one he said, but he was like, yeah, I listen to a couple. Next thing I know, I'm like, well, I have one. So I gave him a sticker. I'm like, I'm not trying to, promote it, but here you go. And I got a couple other Sons of Ben stickers and Union stickers. He's like, oh man, I got a ton. And all of a sudden here we spend 20 minutes talking about the Union. And this guy was he was like, man, I wish there was more Union fans. I'm like, there's actually a lot of us out there. And then I told him a couple places to go to, find out the information. But yeah, it's amazing how when you find, especially here in Lancaster, and even when I'm at York, when you find Union fans, it's like, oh wow, this 4 or 5 years ago, it was like, wow, I knew there was an MLS team, but I didn't know anybody else knew about it. And
Yeah,
that's the truth.
Yeah, and it's growing with like my students, my middle schoolers, and I'm seeing more and more of them actually getting into it. So that's cool. But yeah, so tell us how your podcast came to be.
Sure. So I'll start with this one. So about 3 years ago, 2019, for those who know, my full-time job is very, very busy and stressful and takes up a lot of my time. So about 3 years ago, I was like, I need a hobby to just kind of unwind and find something that I can do to get my mind off everything. So I joined AAT Birds, which was at the time all about the birds. From 2020 to 2022, I was actually pretty avid with college basketball handicapping and betting analysis. And if you go far back on my Twitter enough, you'll see countless videos of me doing college basketball stuff. So while I was doing that, and I did a couple Eagles things, Dave Miller, who is the third musketeer of our group, he's in England. He was also with AAT Birds, and he was doing Eagles stuff. So we were talking, and I was like, you like soccer? I like soccer. And he coincidentally liked the Union too. So we said, why don't we do some Union coverage? So we started off really small, just a couple articles here or there. And then we got credentialed, and then we went to the games, and then it just kind of built from there. And, across the pitch comes from the play of words for across the pond, since Dave is in England. So it kind of went from that. And then because we were doing so much coverage in such a relatively untapped market at the time, we just kind of grew. So that's when they developed AAT Sports Network, because it was now not just about the Birds anymore. It was about the Union and the Phillies now and all that stuff. So we have been on the air and recording now for quite some time. And then Jose, that's when you joined us. So go ahead from there.
Yeah, so I'm frankly just a result of the algorithm. So thank you, Elon, where randomly just on Twitter, I saw Mike and Dave yapping their lips for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And I thought, you know what, this British guy kind of knows what he's talking about. It's hard to understand, but he knows what he's talking about. And then Mike doing a great job sort of steering a conversation. And sometimes I think Mike does an awesome job of certainly reel me in, but reel Dave in when we both kind of go off on our little rants. But I was honestly just a fan who sort of, and I say this jokingly, but also absolutely true, I just barged my way in. I've always listened to podcasts, probably way before they became pretty standard, right? Like Serial sort of broke the lid for a lot of people. I was probably in there before something like Serial made it very, very common for folks who have a podcast app, let alone listen to more than one show. Mainly my geekdom in terms of video games and sports, etc., sports law specifically. So something that was always really attractive to me in terms of being involved, and never really had the backbone to start one. So seeing Mike and Dave just have something that's already started and growing, and I think interesting, especially in the topic at hand, was super appealing to me, as well as wanting to really make good on the promise that I think we've made as three members of the podcast, that every single week, whether we're in season or off season, folks can expect something from across the pitch. May it be a fun interview from somebody that's not involved in the team. May it be us talking, reviewing a game, previewing a game. We are going to try our hardest to make sure that someone is there, whether it's a solo, a duo, or a trio, to provide something to our listeners every single week, because that's, I think, the way that you really satiate an audience. So
Absolutely.
long way to say, I just barged my way in, and whether Mike
really
likes
did.
it or not, I honestly just stuck like a leech. And I think I've provided a different aspect to it all, especially as being somebody who is a season ticket holder and is there every single week when I can. Obviously, being a father of two makes it a little difficult from time to time. Illnesses, commitments. Now, I haven't told Mike this, but our son, who goes to daycare, just got his first invitation to a birthday party, and we're first time, parents at this age. And it's just like, I've never met this family. I don't know who the hell this kid is. What do we do? Social anxiety kicking in. I need to take my medicine. What's going on? So yeah, it's an interesting path, but I think one I really sort of forged myself, and now, involving myself more with press coverage, both in terms of pre and post match conferences, as well as I think hopefully a little project that we're working on, it gets greenlit by the Philadelphia Union itself. So we're really excited about what's coming down the line, but ultimately being bilingual may finally pay off in this side of the equation.
Yeah,
awesome.
Jose was very much just a commenter for like every week. He'd be like, "Hey, Mike, when am I going to come on?" And I was like jokingly at first, like, "Okay." And then he did come on for like as a guest host, because the problem with Dave being 5 hours ahead is that like sometimes he's just exhausted, by the time 9 o'clock comes around, and he also works overnight. So there have been episodes where it's just been me for 15 minutes talking to a camera about the Union. So the thing that works well with us is that, Dave is soccer knowledgeable, but Jose, along with having soccer knowledge, is also Union knowledge, and he has the same knowledge that I have, because he's been with the club almost a little bit longer than I have. So it just kind of works well. Then we do the betting things, because I'm really big in the sports betting, so we've been doing the weekly betting, kind of like how you guys have the fashion thing. For me, it's like I love gambling and sports betting, so for me that was my little thing I could kind of do, because not many other podcasts or shows are doing that. And then even just the TikTok, like I have a TikTok now that is only Union related. So it's, again, to Jose's point, just trying to do something that we love in a fun way. That's basically it.
Mike, I feel like you said betting enough times that you have to, by law, spew out the 1-800 number.
I know. 1-800
addicted.
1-800 gambling.
So when you go to Vegas, I'll tell you funny story. So when you go to Vegas, like it's required by law, like every billboard, every place, like you've seen it, like you'll walk into a bathroom and there'll be like a sign like 1-800 like a gambling addict. It's hilarious. Like every time we go out there, it's like all over the place. But yeah, no, I'm kind of very casual, but yet like every day she'll tell you I'm like on there like looking at lines and everything for you, and then like I'm putting together like hypothetical lines, like parlays and all that. And then one week I actually would hit and would won like I think I would have hit like a 5-teamer, and it was been like I'm like, why didn't I really bet on that? Because like it was like I forget who it was, upset somebody, had a road win, and it was just like, oh man, if I would have picked that. But yeah, that's the fun part about, as long as it's fun, it doesn't become a problem. I do enjoy it.
I gave up betting after Niang lost me like a 7-leg parlay the last couple of years, because he needed just one more 3 coming off the bench. That son of a gun just lost me like $700 the one day, and I just completely gave it up. Totally done. Deleted every possible app.
It does like consume you. So when I did college basketball, so I used to do both. I used to do college basketball and Union, and the problem was with college basketball, it was 7 days a week. So I'd be up till 1 o'clock in the morning waiting for these lines to come out, because I wanted to make sure I got the best line possible, do the teasers, do analysis, articles on this website I was working for, and it became more of a job than I wanted it to be. So that's why I stopped. But to your point, Kyle, it's both really fun, but it can get a little much sometimes. Yeah, definitely.
I think maybe going back to the question though a little bit, I think the addition of a third person also eases the pressure from the rest of the members of our team, right? And I think Mike wouldn't mind me divulging this, but there was a point where he was a little concerned about the time that it was going to take to commit to doing the podcast as often and maybe having to scale back. And, I urged him. I urged
almost
him.
Quit.
Yeah, you almost quit. And, I urged him not to, where like, hey, listen, I don't want you to. I've appreciated sort of collaborating with you. I never used the word work because I still felt like a total guest. But now as a permanent third chair, it's very much a work with you, and it's nice to have more than two people, not just in terms of opinions and viewpoints, but also I regret not being able to see Dave when he was in the States last year, but I certainly feel really close to these two in terms of how much we talk and how often we text. I don't think a day goes by without us texting one another or using the Twitter message thread that we have, where at this point we should just probably move it to a WhatsApp. But it's really fascinating how this club has not only done so much for me and my family, but also created new friendships that I never thought I was going to have, honestly. Right? So, and it's all a result of sort of, again, barging my way as a dumb listener to the show and saying, I can add to this and here's how. And Mike finally heard me out.
It's so true. If you had told me 3 years ago, hey, one day you're going to be really close with a guy from Bolivia and a guy from England, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. But no, it's true. I honestly talk to you, Jose and Dave, more than almost my family members. I talk to them that much, and it's not even about soccer. It could be dating, it could be children, it could be whatever else. That's what makes it cool, because it's a different kind of.
Mike. You good, Mike?
Oh, Mike, you're muted.
Or the mic died. Well, maybe this is a good time for us to turn it over to you guys and sort of answer that same question.
Like, so
you guys hear me now?
Okay, yeah, we're good.
There you go. Thanks.
So what was your question? I'm sorry, Jose. I was like trying to see if I could get it. What was your question? I'm sorry.
No, just how did you, obviously you guys, how did you guys meet? And obviously I'm intrigued because it's always interesting to hear how couples sort of fall into this as well.
All right.
Yeah,
well, so
that's timely since we just had our 14th anniversary on Tuesday.
Congrats.
So, thank you. So funny story about that, actually. Do
you want me to tell it?
Okay.
So I was coaching a club up here in Lancaster, and we had a very small group, but I didn't have an assistant that year. And basically, long story short, we were looking to hire an assistant, and a parent came up to me and she's like, we have this assistant coach, head coach, our summer club, and she is very good with little kids. And I was very good with older kids. And I'm like, great, because that's what I really need. And she was like, okay, great, we'll get in contact with her. So I got in contact with her, scheduled an interviewed her.
Yep, I was fresh out of college.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, we hire her. I leave, like literally I hire her. I leave and go literally 2 days after I hired her, I took a college job. And then they asked me to come back and at least finish out the year. So I did. And, from there, that's kind of when we got to kind of know each other. And, it was kind of something that we found a lot in common and kind of happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's just funny because when Shelby was like, yep, I met him on my interview.
Yep. Job interview.
And funny thing is, he's the first swimmer I ever dated too. It was always football players. But now he's the first swimmer, so I guess I should have dated swimmers sooner. But
that's an HR.
I was a competitive swimmer myself, so
that's an HR nightmare. What you just said. I met him in my interview.
I know.
Right. But you want to know something really wild? Okay, really wild story. Coincidence.
Oh, is that the mom?
Yeah. Oh, so basically, okay. So we dated for like about a year. We got engaged, and then we had a lunch with our families, and they were going to meet and everything. And my mom and his mom were like, oh, you look familiar. You sound really familiar. And then turns out my mom was a student teacher for his mom.
Wow.
Could you believe it? And not only that, so
okay, now here's the kicker.
this is okay. So his mom had my mom over for dinner one time when she was her student teacher and had her for dinner. And at that point, Kyle was a baby in the high chair and joining them for dinner. And my mom remembers that. Like,
You
how
can't
wild
make
is
this
that?
up. I see
I wasn't
Jose over
born
there
for
dying.
several
You
years
can't make
yet,
this
but
up, man. This is like
yeah.
stuff out of a movie, man. Like
This
That's insane.
this is scary. I was afraid when you guys kept on saying there's a kicker. I was like, don't tell me she's your cousin. No, that's awesome. And again, like it's crazy just how intertwined it all can become.
For sure.
It really is. It really, really is. Just like a lot of things in life.
Like how I babysat Andrew Wanger.
Yeah, like
awesome.
yeah, like
I've told that before, but yeah, swim coach.
It's just like things like that, me swimming Michael Phelps multiple times, like train with Olympians and then like running into him just like, at coaches convention now and just like, hey, what's going on? Hey, how are you doing? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's Michael Phelps. It's like, yeah, I used to know him, like used to swim like 2 lays.
Well,
like
and the swimming world is very intertwined. Like it's
like everybody
crazy
knows
how much that is. Oh yeah.
Well, my brother got his ass kicked by Keegan Rosenberry back in high school when he was out in was it Lancaster Mennonite? I think he was at.
Yeah, he was with Jared. He was teammates with Jared.
Yeah, so my brother got his ass kicked by him, and then I remember getting my ass kicked by Zarek Valentine, who is now with Minnesota, but prior to that, he was with Houston, and before that, I forget where he was, but he's a PA Classics native around here too. Mm-hmm. So I remember getting my ass beat by him when I was playing club soccer in Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, I mean we have definitely some local people.
It really is.
Like my sister, she actually who's the guy on DC? Oh yeah. Russell.
Oh.
Yeah, so my sister went to high school with me. He went to Hempfield.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wow. So that's crazy. But yeah, because I was like, wait, Kendall, did you graduate with him? And she's like, well, he didn't end up graduating from there. But yeah, she went to school with him.
You sit on DC, right? DC
United? Yeah.
Tyler Miller, the goalkeeper, when I was a senior at Eustis, he was a freshman goalie for me on varsity. So we used to play together. So it's like, and again, it's seeing him live. Yeah, it's seeing him live in person. Like, wait a minute, I used to be on the bench of that guy talking to him.
Right.
It's all connected in really weird ways. Definitely.
Yep.
It really is. So moving on here, let's get into some MLS news. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. We covered this last week. I'm sure you guys have seen. MLS is partnered with Marvel for the All-Star game. We initially thought, and now it looks like this is going to be a team thing. Jose, you kind of gave us a shout out today too with the Charlotte rumored leak. Where you guys stand on this? And we both have our thoughts, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts because it's just and correct me if I'm wrong. It feels very much like we go to a lot of minor league hockey games. We go to Reading, we go to Hershey.
Oh my God. What a perfect analogy.
Does this not seem like, oh, we're going to have like Charlotte with Captain America fights so-and-so that's going to wear, I don't know.
Oh, weren't we at a Reading Royals game and they had like Harry Potter
versus,
it was like Gryffindor versus Slytherin.
Yeah, so anyway, I digress. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Jose, I'll go first. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I must give credit to the folks at Foodie Headlines. Like I said in my tweet, having been browsing and sort of saw that image earlier in the day, but I wasn't quite sure for its credibility. So once it came through Foodie Headlines, which they're as solid as it gets when it comes to a source, I was fairly certain I could just post it. So we can totally expect the Philadelphia Union version of that Captain America shirt for July 4th. Though it is not the partnership. It seems like there's going to be maybe superhero specific jerseys, sort of like what you're referring to for each team. What that looks like for how many teams are in the league? 30 something. I don't know. It seems like they're going to really have to dig deep. I pray for the team that gets Ant-Man or Miss Marvel.
I'm telling you right now, it's going to be Columbus is going to get Wasp. I'm already calling it. There you go.
That's not a bad mix. I'm sort of intrigued onto who we get.
We should get Thor.
Well, maybe Thor. That would make sense considering
lightning,
the jersey.
thunder,
Yeah. So you can expect the jersey probably late June, according to the foodie headline guys.
I saw that. Yep.
Late June going into July. So give folks plenty of time for the purchase to come through. Not a fan. And your analogy is so correct, right? I think we're one step away with this jersey from it being a Star Wars night at the Fighting Phils, right?
Right.
Yep.
Not sure. And, through my line of work, I met an alum of Versailles who actually helped design the latest Buy You kit. And he sort of walked me through what that process is like. And it's not a comfortable one. I think he described it as very much a situation where there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen and ideas get muffled, and the person with the loudest voice often gets gets the way in what comes out at the end of the meeting. As well as a very tedious process, right? When you're trying to get all these folks together and get with a brand such as Adidas, it's such a difficult thing to finally nail down. So I don't imagine that Marvel was as difficult in terms. I'm guessing that they probably dictated the terms onto who gets what and what it looks like. But this 4th of July pre-match kit, not for me. Certainly, unlike Mike, I will not be dropping any dollars on it. I'm not sure the Captain America shield does it for me.
Yeah. I don't. Ugh.
Go ahead, Jillian. I will say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say. I feel like it's gimmicky. I think it's a good word for gimmicky. It just it feels very much like when we used to give bread out after the games. It just feels like a little sponsor to throw in, kind of minor league feel, as you guys mentioned. But it's obviously catered to the kids and purchasing the jersey for the kids, which I get that. But you don't see the Eagles doing this kind of stuff, or any Major League Baseball team that you can think of.
Yeah, honestly, what it struck me as is it looks like a tiled background that I would have had maybe on my Macintosh Performa circa 1998, back when I was like in middle school. That's what it looks like to me.
It really does.
Love that.
So my whole thing with this whole Marvel thing, I think we all know this is Don and the owners just saying, how can we make more money? Marvel's hot, right now. Everybody loves Marvel. Let's go get that money. Kids are going to buy the jerseys, and we're just going to throw it out there. And then, like with the MLS Cup, like we saw some of the stuff that was released yesterday and today. The warm-ups. I don't know. Have you guys seen those warm-ups tops, like the white with red stripe that says like Marvel MLS?
No.
Yeah. I'll send you guys that then.
Yeah, I'll have to look at them.
Yeah. And then there's a black one with that kind of what Charlotte had with the gold lettering. And then you have the Captain America soccer ball. And then you have the Marvel with all the characters on it. And it's just
I did see the soccer ball.
Yeah.
This is all for the kids. Let's be honest.
I think the kids would love the soccer ball, especially. Warm-ups are okay.
You're going to see some kid look at that Captain America 4th of July jersey and go, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing I wanted. It's going to be like $100 and some dollars. And then my
son saw it today and he thought, oh, Captain America shirt, daddy. It's like, makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I took it as too. I was like, this looks more like a warm-up top than jersey, kind of thing. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't hate the thought in theory. And as we all know, a lot of things in theory sound great, but then when you actually put things to the print and put all the details together, and then it gets messy and then it doesn't turn out well. So I'm curious to see how this goes, but right now I'm just like, okay,
it's just too busy.
It's too busy,
and then you put the logo
other
stuff.
kids. Yeah. Maybe there'll be some really cool kits coming out there. I saw a leak. Somebody leaked a Lana kit that was like green. It had like little leaves like Groot, and that was
interesting.
But I don't know if that was like, how people make concept jerseys and say, I heard a rumor.
Yeah.
It was more of that, but who knows? We'll see what some of these things start. I mean, if they get creative and make them look nice,
if anyone was Groot, it should be
Portland.
Portland.
That's what I
think so, right?
And
you feel like they just got a pile of ideas threw on the wall. Whatever is the hottest one will sell, and then they're like, okay, it was worth it. We've had 10 busts, but these 3 were really good, so we made some money off that.
Well, to be fair to them, right? I want to give them credit for one thing and one thing only so far, based solely on the Captain America pre-match shirt, and that is of the return of the jock tag, right? I think an iconic piece of a jersey is to have the jock tag where you have the brand and you also have whoever you're collaborating with, and maybe I think way back when jock tags were actually intended for you to put your name on. So if you were putting them through laundry, you knew whose jersey it was and you were getting it back. I mean, I worked at an independent school where I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the gym, put my dirty clothes in a ring, put it in the laundry basket, and then the next day my clothes would show up at my locker with all of my stuff all washed, et cetera, et cetera. So I got blessed the person who had to put up with my sweaty clothes. But to finally see that back is actually kind of exciting. But then also just I can't imagine that focus testing any of this is easy, let alone safe, right? Especially when you're thinking about how many eyes would have to see to approve, never mind us being armchair analysts onto who should get what, right? So some credit to be due to or given back to Adidas, but I must admit this Captain America jersey just totally feels like the easiest path to get something on the shelves.
It really does.
Yeah, agreed.
So you want to talk about the game?
Yeah, so let's talk about the game last night. So how are you guys feeling about the Union after last night's 2-2 draw?
Well, we discussed on the show on Monday night the ideal end of this week would be 4 points. Well, obviously it'd be 6 points, but we could survive with 4 points. We knew that Orlando would be the tougher of the 2 matches, especially going on the road, not having Gazdag. I mean, obviously Blake's still gone. So, do I like how we got the 2-2? Not necessarily, but I'm all about the result. And at the end of the day, we got a point on the road. I can kind of live with that, you know?
Yeah. As people who listen to our show know, I am a big proponent of win at home, tie away. That's the way that you win championships in most leagues that don't deal with playoffs. So to not be swept by Orlando is huge, right? I think that was, without Jim saying it, I'm guessing that was on his mind, right? To lose at home and to lose away would have been sort of an embarrassment to him probably, and really everybody in that squad in the locker room. So was it pretty? Absolutely not. Was it a show of grit and determination to find a way, even if it took I would say, very fortunate cross that turned into a goal, which happens more often than people think, but also what I think will be remembered not just as the best goal in MLS this year, but also probably the best goal ever scored for the Philadelphia Union to happen. Absolutely. So a 2-2 tie midweek game after 11 days away, I don't think it's a bad result altogether when you think about the missing pieces of Gazdag, as well as someone who's notoriously not great after an international break, and that of Jose Martinez, who, by the way, was the person who scored the goal of the year, let alone the goal in the history of the Philadelphia Union. To put him right away after playing for Venezuela was sort of interesting. So not mad about it, but it being a game of inches was just probably the best way to describe it too when you think about the UA chance or the Carranza chance as well.
That's what I was going to bring up. That UA chance at the end, like that ball goes in. That's like a highlight goal in itself because he kind of hits it and knocks it right up. And it's like, oh man, that would have been a beautiful goal. And he had like and Schneider had that other save I went back and looked at earlier in the game. I mean, right there. So you kind of, like you guys said, you kind of leave feeling like, oh, that should have been a win. And the fact that we had Joe Bendick in net, which I love Joe. He's a great leader. He's a great team person.
But he's not Andre.
But he's also not 28-year-old Joe Bendick. He's getting up there. And you can tell like he knows what his body wants to do at times, like especially last night. But he's just getting to that point where, yes, he's good in small doses, but to rely on him like we saw earlier in the season, long times, like, Okay. I mean, could be worse? Absolutely. I mean, look at DC last year. They with their backup guy that we torched for what was it, 13 goals, and they had to bring in
13,
we had to bring in they had to go buy Ochoa from Real Salt Lake. So I mean, at the end of the day, I think what really stood out to me is something that last year at this time we're complaining about the draws, right?
Right.
Now I think the Union, yes, they've gotten some more losses, but to me, they've also found ways to win games or at least get points late. And to your point, Jose, that also, I'm a big proponent of getting points on the road. Doesn't care if it's 1 or 3. But coming back late, like we saw in Minnesota, that also is going to have value, I feel, later on in the season.
Yeah, we've been resilient, and
yes,
it's not great that we've been playing from behind a lot
like
this year, as opposed to last year we were scoring early a lot. We were getting up a goal, and that was great. We're playing from behind though this year, but I mean we're down 2-0 last night, and then we come back and and we almost could have gone ahead. Yeah, had it was chance gone in, but I like the resiliency I've seen. It shows that we can battle back, and it's gonna be tough in this stretch without Andre Blake. I mean, I think here's where we really could have used Matt Freeze this year, but it is what it is. But yeah, if the offense can do their part and the defense can hold up, I think we can be okay with Joe. But
I think Jillian, it becomes a situation, as Mike knows, and we've discussed on our show, is who are the bodies that are going out, especially as we go through the European market in July, August, and into September, where I think Jim has been very clear, and even more so, adding more fuel to the fire of Julian Carranza maybe being one of them, right? In terms of bodies out. And I think, halfway through a season, never mind the 6 additional games that we played for the CCL and 1 US Open Cup game, I think it's maybe fair to say that the additions of depth 1 for 3 in terms of success rate. Damian Lowe, incredible. I think in the times that he's gotten a chance. Joaquin Torres, kind of difficult to gauge outside of maybe, that the home opener and putting people through the spin cycle and scoring a goal, maybe. But Andres Perea being probably the biggest puzzle of them all. It'll be really interesting to see what we do in the coming weeks. And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but just wanted to sort of share that point right now.
No, it is. It very much is. And I'll be honest with you. Let's talk about it right now. Because I think you bring up a good point. We can always go back, because I do want to ask about where you guys rank the Jose Martinez goal. But let's get to talk about transfers real quick. Where are you guys at with going into this July window? What do you want to see? And realistically, we've seen the Athletic article. I'm sure you guys have too, with that Tom wrote, where he had all the rumors. He talked about even somebody on extra time. Where are you guys at with that?
So I think for me, it has to be a third striker, somebody that's reliable. I mean, so we were talking on our show, Jose, I think about 3 weeks ago, and we said, oh yeah, Quinn Sullivan, he scored, wait, when's the last time he scored? And we drew a blank, and we said that's a really humongous problem that we cannot remember the last time our third striker scored. I think Valerie, one of our faithful commenters, had mentioned something in 2021 or whatever. But it was the Corey Burke effect is so real and so obvious. And I look about what we lost from last year. We lose Paxton Aronson, who was the backup for Gazdag, right? But in theory, you're never going to bench Gazdag in an important match. You're never going to bench him. So then who's his backup? I would rather have Quinn as the backup 10 and just not have Torres in there at all. I know Jim kind of praised Torres a bit in the press conference. I think it was a bit forced, because I don't think anybody agreed that Torres necessarily made a difference. But if Gazdag is going to be the 10 for as many minutes as possible, then I'm okay with Quinn being that backup. And I would rather have another striker be brought in to leapfrog Quinn and leapfrog Chris Donovan, say, I'm going to be the Corey Burke moving forward. And Quinn will be the fourth one and Chris Donovan will be the fifth one, or just not even make the roster. But I just don't see how this team can solely rely on those two strikers every single week. It's just a lot to ask. You have to have some sort of, you guys might remember better than me, but Corey Burke had what, 7 goals last year?
Eight. Because I had a joke that we were going to be like one of the first teams in MLS that four players with 10 goals.
Okay,
and it never happened.
So
he wasn't far off.
We were close. I went through the record books. We could not find anybody. Todd and a couple other people, I think it was Renee, we were all looking. We were like, we can't find it. So yeah.
So you had 8, and then you think you had Sergio Santos for a little bit last year too. Mm-hmm. He had maybe 1 or 2 at the most with us at that short time he had. You have 1 goal between Chris Donovan and Quinn Sullivan, and it's from Chris Donovan. That is a humongous problem. For me, I'd like to see a striker. If you want to add a midfielder, I don't think it's going to benefit us at this point in time. Mm-hmm. I think you have to go up top.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we were talking the predictions for this year, we were so thrilled, as many pundits were as well, of returning 92% of the minutes from last year. And now that we're halfway through the MLS season and additional Champions League matches, US Open Cup games, etc., was it the best idea? I don't know, but it's not going to matter if we end up winning. But if we don't win, was this a mistake? And is Ernst Tanner sort of the man to blame for bringing back all of these bodies? And, what was really interesting to me, and I remember sort of saying to Mike, like, am I going crazy? Like, people asking, people being social media, which isn't a great guiding star of sanity, never mind knowledge, especially in sports, but people asking for more time for the team to gel, for the team to grow, for the team to know one another. When in my head, I'm like, guys, this is 92% of the squad from last year. They know one another. They know how to play. And I understand that they were away over the summer and busy and celebrating, their achievements, which most of them were probably pretty pissed of the way that the season ended last year. But nonetheless, they know one another. It should not be taking this long. But in terms of additions, hopefully it's a 1-to-1 ratio, right? Replace whoever we lose in terms of position. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But again, going back to last year, what a stark difference in terms of approach it was when Gareth Bale goes in, and who goes in for us as a substitute?
Chris Donovan.
Yeah. Chris Donovan. What a 180 in terms of approach by 2 different franchises. One that you could argue is not or has not been playing by the rules, and one that has been sort of doing everything right in terms of growing players from nothing to a lot of money for the league. So I'm hopeful that we're able to add more bodies and sort of hold on to some of the pieces that we have in terms of Kai Wagner, right? Is he just going to let that contract run out? Is he going to sign something last minute? I don't know. Are we able to keep suitors away from Carranza? I doubt it, with how much Jim praises and frankly continues.
If he keeps missing those sitters, though, they might.
Though you must also acknowledge just how hard Jim is just hyping this guy up, and for a good reason, right? He's a very good player that we got for very, very cheap. So to turn him into a multi-million-dollar sale, considering the pennies that we paid for him, that would be massive for the franchise.
I mean, it's
for us, but for Jay Sugarman.
It's going to go down as one, potentially, I should say, could go down as one of the greatest trades of all time. I mean, in MLS. I mean, I guess where I'm at is, I think, I'd love to see a third striker in there, obviously. I kind of want to see a midfielder, somebody, and I think it was Skylar when we had him on brought up that point. Like, somebody that could be a 10, could also, if Ali goes, he's getting up there, somebody so you don't have to put Jack on the right.
Yeah.
Somebody give us a little bit more midfield flexibility, especially, Barrera, as much as I like what I saw early on the season, I just think him and Joaquim are kind of falling into a little bit of that Jesus effect where, you see these things, and even Odada, where you see these flashes of like, why is this guy not playing? I think with both of them, though, there's something more there, which we're kind of seeing now when they play. They're, maybe that luster's wearing off a little bit, but it could be a lot of something that they're just not fitting with the team. They're not, they're just not right for the Union. But there's also a lot of things. Maybe they, I know like Orlando doesn't play a press and at all. So maybe there's that, because I know Jim said multiple times that's the defensive cues.
Yep.
That he always they're struggling with that in this. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing, like you guys said, is with Kai, where are we at? Because the last thing I think, more importantly than Kranz and Glenn, because my gut would tell me they're going to ride them out and try to get rid of them in the winter. But what do I know? So, but at the same time, the Kai situation, because the last thing you want to do is develop this guy when you got him like Kranz for pennies on the dollar, and he goes off. And yeah, we've always heard rumors of 8, even 10 million potentially. I don't know how true that was, what Tom had reported, but you'd hate to lose that when you had at least some offer potential. Right. Now, you've heard him also say, well, those are all rumors. There's never a formal offer. You'd hate to see that. So I hope we can at least figure out something, hopefully, with Messi. I always joke about this, like maybe Messi comes in and these guys are going to say, hey, I could play with Messi for another, against Messi for another year. So we'll see. I just hope if he does leave, we figure out what we're going to do there, because I'm not sure. I like Matt Real, but he's not a long-term answer. I'm at least in my opinion right now.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just add to that, I think the fact that Jim has changed the formation more recently. I know Bedoya has been out. I know Damian Lowe's, improvement has kind of forced his hand, but I do think that has been helpful to the roster that we have, where you're not just forcing these pieces to fit no matter what, and you're not forcing ourselves to be predictable with Bedoya on the right and Leon on the left and Jose. And having Jose and Leon work together has been so much different than what we've seen, especially from Flock. I feel like he's kind of grown into his own in that role next to Jose, but it allows the offensive ability of both Kai and Olivier, or Nathan, who's actually done fairly well recently, to flourish a bit more and to rely on those back three. So I do like that the change of formation has worked to the players they have. But for me personally, you mentioned transfers coming in. I'm terrified about what has been, unfortunately, a very bad pattern for the Union, where they bring players in and they just don't see the field. To your point, I mean, you can go back to Dabo, you can go back to Orvik, you can even look at Cole Turner, for example. A guy never saw the pitch. It just, you bring somebody in, are they actually going to make an impact, or is it just going to be constantly, well, there's defensive miscue, there's offensive this, like Perea? It's like, well, then that goes to scouting. If you're pulling these guys in and they can't even see the field for 5 minutes on a 2-1 win, that's a huge problem to me.
Never mind Perea making more money than a good chunk of our veteran players after just joining after 1 year.
And they're MLS players. If you bring in somebody like Gazlag and they don't transition right away, fine. But the fact that you basically said we're bringing in MLS caliber players to play right now, and you're playing 33% of them, and Damian Lowe being that 33%, who's actually now hurt again for the third time this season. So it's like, that's on Tanner.
Those are all fair points. I just still want to see, but I still want to see if we can. I still want to see if Perea works out. I hope he does.
He's one I was like most high on.
Like that was the one I was high on.
Yep.
Actually,
we were highest on Damian. And I thought
Lowe I was the most confident about, but Torres I saw that upside. That was probably my biggest disappointment. That and Bizo. But we're not going to get into that one. So moving on, let's talk about Jose Martinez's goal. First, was that where you rank that? I mean, you've already said it goes down as the greatest goal, but what makes that better than Glesnes' banger against Red Bulls? And number two, we got a question from Mr. Todd Lewis. he wants to know, if the Union do not win the MLS Cup, is Jose's goal all for naught?
Yes, 100% yes. So I mean, I feel like I posted online today on Twitter my top 10 goals that I can think of. I just at the point I was in the morning on my break, I was like, I'm gonna fire off 10 goals. So I had Brujos, I had all three of Glessenses, I had Kleberson's free kick, I had Barnetta's, and I went in terms of the difficulty of it, not in terms of the impact. I'm gonna say this is an extremely difficult shot. To me personally, Brujos' volley from nearly 40 yards out is so impossible to replicate. You know, I've seen Glessen's goal against Red Bulls before. I've seen crazy free kicks that he's done. Rarely do you see a volley that well struck. But in terms of the importance of it, I think you have to put Jacobs number one in terms of the impact to the game, the season. It's obviously the playoffs. I mean, it's a walk-off goal in the playoffs. You can argue Fabian's goal against the Red Bulls in that playoff match is the impact of it. So I was flirting with a bunch of ideas with Twitter. The Elsinho game, for example, and his goals.
Yep.
But to me, I mean, Brujo's never going to strike a ball that good again. As simple as that.
Do you think he walked away with that ball?
He had to.
Oh.
He had to. He did. He tracked down that ball, found it, and he has it with him right now. That's just who Jose is. He has that ball.
Can you imagine if he hit that goal though at Subaru Park?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I saw that tossed around today on Twitter, and I'm thinking to myself, Jose Nunez, myself, shirtless.
all the ultras shirtless. That whole the 140 would go nuts, dude.
In July,
I
don't know. I would have been 2 cigars down and maybe like 5 beers and 2 glasses of bourbon down. I would have gone bananas if I had witnessed that, especially if it was coming towards us.
Oh my gosh,
towards the river end. Yeah, that would have been a spectacle, and obviously Danny Higginbotham mentioned it during the broadcast that that would have tore the lid open had it been at Subaru Park. But to answer the question at hand, I think Mike makes a really good point in terms of context versus difficulty, and I think this goal would go maybe head to head with the Tranquilo Barnetta. And I know I posted today on Twitter. I was actually able to find a video and posted it again, but same team around the same time in terms of the match. Interestingly enough, Bendik on different ends of the equation. And I would say in terms of difficulty, pretty close. Because if you watch that free kick, that went outside the frame, back in, post in, and was probably something that Tranquilo would probably say, yeah, I never thought I would have hit it like that. So is it equal to that one? I'm not sure. Probably, my stomach says yes, it leapfrogged it, as I mentioned on Twitter. But in terms of context, it's hard to argue against that Glesnes goal. Never mind how sad I was last year when I had to go to the bathroom and I missed the first goal against New York City. That broke my heart. I was so sad standing in the stall and hearing the entire stadium just like go bananas, and I'm just sad looking at a yellow brick wall in the bathroom. So upset. Luckily I made it back to my seat for the second one.
It's funny you mentioned the Bendik because he was the victim of the Cleberson goal too. He was also in net. Bendik just keeps coming around, but that's why I also mentioned the Mark McKenzie goal against DC, because if you remember that game, if I remember correctly, that game had like impact on the supporter shield standings at the time, because that was late in the season. But that McKenzie goal is one that gets forgotten. It was such a good strike.
I personally have a goal which we will never talk about that could have been the greatest goal of all time in Union history, but we won't talk about that one. You know which one I'm talking about. Yeah. The one.
Oh,
yeah,
that one.
Yeah. That one that I feel so bad for Jack, but we won't talk about that. Anyway, for me, I would say probably Glass is my other one. And this is just a personal favorite. I would say Glesson probably. I really love the Glesnes goal, but then the one that just tears my heart to this day is the Corey Burke goal against New York City where he just
Oh, yeah.
salutes the crowd. Now
The goal itself
we're up
was
3-1
a good
at that
goal,
point.
but like
So
just the whole
context, but it's
context.
just like in the context of like you knew that was one of his last game at Subaru Park, and he just salutes the river. And now looking back on that, makes that special. My other favorite, probably context moment. Oh man, what was the
Stu Finley's goal in the Open Cup? That's
no,
one of my
Oh my
favorites.
God.
I knew you were gonna bring that up.
No, but
Love
no.
it.
Actually,
your
if you would have
guy.
remember how close he came though in his last game for us to like
Yes.
having a banger. I
Can
wish he would have made that one.
I'll tell you what. I
Yeah.
have one that I think everybody's gonna laugh at, and that is Leon Flock against Cincinnati, because Cincinnati,
Well, yeah, the context of
Cincinnati
it, especially.
had our number that whole year. I mean, they've had our number since
I
Pat
forgot
and
about
Chris is there, and just flicks it on, ball goes in the net, and that's a
So
goal.
awkward.
It's
So
just
awkward.
it's
Yeah.
probably one of the most awkward goals I've seen live, because I'm like, that's going, oh my gosh, that actually went in. Like I'm standing right there. So
And a goal is a goal is a goal.
that's one. And then of course, obviously the Fabian, there's a couple others in there that we've seen, but yeah, I think in terms of context, just to get that monkey off the bat, that yes, we can beat a Pat Noonan coach Cincinnati. It was key, and that really got us on that run.
Yeah, one of my favorite goals ever though too is Julian Kranz's bicycle.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, little dribbler in.
Just for the sheer like awesomeness of it.
No, you gotta admit though that the Martinez goal this week, honestly, and this is maybe my geekiness or nerdum, whatever. It honestly looked like something out of an anime. Just like the way it spun away and it just hit the post. It looked like it just like
And
is this like a cartoon?
I've
what am I
watched
watching?
it on so many.
We've watched it so many times.
And Higginbottom said it deflected, or it was Calgosi.
It like knuckled.
But it just knuckled, and it knuckled up, and it was like, oh, because I first saw, I'm like, oh, that deflected, and I'm like, no, it just knuckled.
Yeah, I thought it deflected first too. Yeah.
And now we're on board here for another 200 some attempts that he's gonna take within now and the end of the season, because he's like, I done it, I can do it again, right? And strikers often say, and obviously he's a midfielder, defensive at that, but often say, once you break the seal off the first one, they start flowing. I don't think that'll be the case for Jose. No, just to be super transparent,
he's gonna sky the next one.
I'm guaranteeing you I'm taking the over at 4, because I guarantee you he's taking at least, I should say 3. I'm taking the over at 3, because you guarantee he gets a wide open shot 18 yards out, outside 18. He's shooting now.
Yeah.
Also, I saw people flirting around the Quinn Sullivan goal, the bicycle goal I think with Chicago. I know Paxton Aronson's first goal against New England was a big one, but for me, I liked the double dummy from Montero that led to the Casper goal in the MLS's Cup back. So like if you watched our show enough times,
oh my God,
the MLS Cup was kind of the arrival for the Union in a way. Yes. They make the semis. I know, of course, the LAFC match with the Glesnes Rocket. I know that, and that was Brujo's introduction, and he had the bloody mouth. Yep. So that season had a lot of introductions, but for me, the Union were always still very much this is a counterattacking team, and that was the epitome of a counterattacking goal done perfectly between Miro, Brendan, and Casper. So for me, in terms of just when this Union ball started rolling, that goal was like, oh, the Union can do that. Okay, I'm paying attention now, and it just it's been now the last 3 years of just great memories. So that the Casper's difficulty wasn't great, but everything that led up to it was such a beautiful team goal at that time.
Interesting. So I think the last question here before we wrap up, but it's a two-parter. First, what are your expectations for this weekend against Miami? No Messi. We kind of joked about it earlier. No Messi. It's gonna be a sold-out crowd. Yes, we'll have probably Gazdag back. Yep. But of course, no Blake. So we gotta navigate the waters there with Joe again. Hopefully, we have a very solid defensive performance, which you tend to at home. But what's your thoughts for this Saturday's game, and then just moving forward for the rest of the season? And let each of you answer that.
Jose, you can go first.
Yeah, I'll start off. I think that it needs to be said, and I sort of went on for a 5-minute rant and I won't do it here, but I think it needs to be acknowledged that what Miami's doing, whether you like it or not, has to be praised to Jorge Mas in terms of, I think this is the arrival of Lionel Messi is going to be sort of the benchmark of Union MLS 4.0 or 5.0, wherever you see the different breaks into its next evolution. But in terms of this weekend, I think it's very much going to feel like a tryout session for a lot of those players who are probably into the late hours of the night, working with their agents, working with the front office and figuring out, do I belong here anymore? Considering that Messi and company are coming into town, and whether you want to call it a circus or not, that's a different story altogether. But it needs to be known that if Messi wants somebody here, Jorge Mas and the ownership, David Beckham et al. Will do whatever they can within the letters of the law to bring them into town. So I think a lot of players will be sort of playing for their future in Miami, which should probably benefit us. So I see this as, I will never call it an easy win, but this team is honestly in such flux right now that I can't imagine that there's any cohesiveness or any sense of game plan for coming to Philadelphia to win away from home, considering how hard it is in this league. So I know I don't think we did predictions for this game, Mike, but I'm also sort of feeling like a 2-0 win on our end, maybe a Carranza goal to stick it to the man one more time, as well as a Mikel Ua sort of tap in from an early cross from somebody like Mbaizo, et cetera, on a fast break. So long way to say, I think this will be an exciting match. Hopefully the weather holds out. I haven't looked at the weather, but knowing that it's going to rain tomorrow and knowing our luck with home games, whether it's, super cold, windy, or rainy, we sort of get all of that except sunny, though. The Toronto game, shirt was off all 90 minutes. So I love that. Hopefully we get some more of that too.
Yeah, the weather looks like it's 40% chance of rain on Saturday, which I'm not looking forward to. I know, knock on wood. I see. We had discussed this on our show as well, the transition of Bedoya back into the lineup. And what my concern is going back to the way things had been before his injury, which was the diamond. And I think all four of us have agreed the team has looked much more deadly in their new three in the back. But the problem is Damian Lowe is not here. But I do think that we did experiment briefly with Kai on the back of that back three with Matt Real on the winger. Yeah. And it worked. It worked against Montreal. I'm not saying it's going to work again now, but I would like to see Bedoya incorporated into this new formation rather than the team changing because Bedoya is back in the lineup. Now, did they do okay against Orlando in the Diamond? Sure, they obviously scored 2 goals in the Diamond with Bedoya back in it, so maybe I'm going to, eat my words here, but the team just looked more dangerous in that formation. So maybe Bedoya's next to Jose Martinez, or maybe Bedoya, because he's still kind of coming back from, maybe comes in as a sub for Leon Flock late in the game. For me, to Jose's point, Miami has a circus around them. They're still very much in shambles. New coach, all that stuff. Beat the crap out of them. Let them, kind of put your emphasis on this win. But I just don't want this to be the start of Jim regressing back to forcing things when they don't need to be forced.
It's unfortunate that we have missing players, because this could be the start of a 6-0 win.
Yeah, I know.
A 7-0 win, right? Especially with how battered this Miami squad probably feels, and folks in that locker room looking around like, am I gonna see you here next week, or are you gonna be somewhere in Europe or somewhere in the USL, or honestly probably not even in the MLS? I don't know. So it's such a shame that we're missing the Blakes of the world for a match like this one.
Yeah.
No, I think for me, it's going to be, you guys both brought up an interesting point in that for me, I would be curious to see Bedoya in a double pivot, or like, keeping him fresh. Because again, he's getting up there. He's had some knocks end of last year, early and mid part of this year. there's an opportunity for, and Jim has talked about, you both have heard it, with roster lineup flexibility. All right. But you're both right that I was talking to some other people yesterday, and we were like, do you think they do the diamond? No, we all agree with Ali in there, Jim's going to go to the diamond because that's what Jim loves. However, I think if Jim can get out of his comfort zone, like he did when he started running with that, 3 in the back, I think there's a lot of potential there. And I'd like to start seeing him. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? I mean, it doesn't work. Okay, we move on, try something else. But I would like to see him as the season progresses throughout the year. We continue to try to experiment with some flexibility, different formations. I do like Kai and Real out there with 3 in the back. I would be curious to see what that looks like again against a battered, like you say, team that's kind of like, eh. But I if I'm a bet man, I'm predicting the diamond. I just think that's where he's gonna go.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
So Mike knows this. I've been a big proponent / sort of yelling this from the rooftops as of last year, well before Bedoya's injury in the Eastern Cup final or conference final. Sorry. Does Philadelphia have an unhealthy relationship in terms of not giving up, but moving on from Bedoya? Right. I was very surprised to see him sign an additional year.
Go ahead.
I just have a hard time seeing Philadelphia moving on from Bedoya the way that obviously his body has responded over the past year. And I always preface this by saying that I'm extremely thankful for what he's done for the city in terms of talking about the city, changing its profile to people from outside the city, as well as pitching the city as one of the venues for 2026 and doing it successfully as well. But to run him as hard as we have in the past 18 games, 19 games, being not even the first man out at his age and the amount of miles he's running, to me seems sort of like an unhealthy relationship in a way. So not that he's unhappy or anything. Every time I've talked to him or seen him, he's obviously thrilled to be part of the union and in this team. But it certainly feels like we're having a hard time moving on. So I'm intrigued to hear from use Mike, your perspective.
There you go again.
Your perspective, what that seems like to you.
So for me, you brought on we're just running him into the ground. I think that's my biggest concern at his age, but also when I look at his advanced data, I mean, the guy's still performing at his level. Yes, so it's a double-edged sword for me. I love Ali, but there has to be a way, he can't be playing 90 minutes when we're up 3-0.
No.
He needs to be running off that pitch. Jim needs to be one of his first subs off. And so to answer your point, I think Jim trusts him. I think there is just very much a good coach-athlete bond where you just trust him, where sometimes I see it as a coach where you can almost just, he's not what he was 10 years ago, but he's still at times just showing you that. And I just feel like Jim sometimes, he's still Ali Bedoya. He can go. And I just feel like at times Jim needs to say, okay, Ali, come on, let's go. Let's bring in somebody else. And I think if we were able to do that, then yes, I think he would be fine. But do we have, I'm more the proponent of, we need to be guarding him a little bit at this point in his career rather than just running him out there till his tires fall off, like we kind of seen him coming back from now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he does still have it pretty good, but I think sometimes, he's on a little too long at times. I mean, he's a huge asset to the team. I've said before to Kyle, if he's not injured, if he's in the MLS Cup, that might have been the difference. Just because his leadership, and Andre's a great leader and captain when he's in, but I feel like maybe Ali's leadership there.
It's a different type because you're in the back compared to in the middle of the field.
It could have been just a little bit of an X factor there, but I think, he he's an asset to the team. But yeah, he shouldn't be necessarily out as long as he is sometimes. But I would really love to see him in a coaching role when his playing time is done, though. I think that would be great.
I'm super intrigued. I'm so glad you brought that up because I mentioned this to Mike and Dave on our show. He's on the designated players roster spot, if I remember correctly.
Right.
I can't imagine that we sign him for one more year. Maybe, I don't know. I personally, as armchair manager, I don't know that I would, especially for that type of spot, considering what we could be bringing in. Right. I wonder, an ambassador, youth coach. It seems like he loves the city. His wife and kids are pretty well settled here. Obviously, they go. I think her wife is from Iceland. I think.
Yeah.
She's from Norway.
Norway, sorry.
Yeah.
So I know that they travel and go there and visit. So I'm intrigued onto what his role is after the union, whether it's next year or the year following. So it's really fascinating, and I think he will forever, and probably one of the easiest Ring of Honor members to throw up on that board in the coming years.
Yeah.
Oh, agreed.
Well, anyway, guys. Thank you, guys. It has been great. In fact, you guys have set the record for the longest episode.
It's my fault.
No.
It's definitely Jose's fault.
We don't really say like this is a strict time limit. No, we just talk until the conversation's kind of gotten to the point where, hey, this is a good wrap up point. But this is a conversation that down the road we'll have you guys back on and pick up where we left off, especially during the off season. So.
Yep.
But before we get out of here, where can people find you guys at?
Sure. So also as well, I would love to have you guys on the show as well. We don't have nearly as much guests as we would like. I know being live also is kind of difficult sometimes. It's just like, hey guys, you have to be there 8:30 on the dot. But again, we'll try to do maybe a pre-recorded one to make it a little more convenient for some of our guests. But we are working for AAT Sports Network, which you can follow us on Twitter on that. It's AAT Sports _. My Twitter handle and my TikTok handle are the same, Barrera, Barrera 1323 on both platforms. Jose, I know you're Jose R Nunez 91 on Twitter. Dave,
I had to look it up. You knew it.
I know. Listen, man. I'm hosting this show. I got this memorized by now. And then we have Dave. He's Dave GFC Miller on Twitter as well. So you can catch us on there. We live on Twitter probably more than we should. But otherwise, we do 8:45 p.m. every single Monday night live. We stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can't comment on Twitter. I have no idea why, but you can comment on Facebook and YouTube. I know both of you have, so we appreciate that. And then we always...
Damn it, Elon.
I know. And then we always post a replay on both Spotify and Apple, also with the AAT Sports Network platform. So you can find us on there, and that's basically it.
And you guys can follow the episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and now we're on Google. And actually, we've started getting some people. Does anybody? Here's my question on Google. Like, I actually know 3 people at my job that actually just use Google. I never had heard of Google until you start connecting them. Do you guys have? Do you guys use the trackers? Do you guys have a lot of Google podcast people?
No, I don't think so. No.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's like these 3 people are like, yeah, we follow your podcast. Oh, there you go.
I use the Pixel phone, so Google Podcast app is what I use as I look at my I don't want to say it out loud to wake up my kids since it might stop their rain noises or whatever that they sleep through. But no, it's I guess parting words on my end, as Mike mentioned, you can find me there on Twitter. But thank you so much for having us. Honestly, this is very cathartic in a way, right? We often find ourselves talking amongst Dave, myself, and Mike, but it's always nice to sort of collaborate and connect with others. I know I've sort of poked a little bit of fun with Todd and getting us on there from time to time, and obviously he's busy doing big things, as well as collaborating with some other big faces. So hopefully on our end we have some more news to share with some other projects and ideas that we have. But obviously big brother, big Philadelphia Union has to nod yes for some of our ideas. But it's awesome to see this community continue to grow. As I've seen it develop from its beginning, its inception per se. So it's so glad to see all of these folks creating content. It's
together,
so much fun.
especially.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's never a rival between anybody. It's always like, hey, you know, you want me on my podcast? Sure. I'll see you at the tailgate afterwards, you know?
Yep.
Exactly. That's how it should be, honestly.
It really should. And then, so, and to your guys' point, anybody, you guys want to comment, share some ideas with us, hit us up on Twitter at TOTWAG, and on Facebook and Instagram at the One Team We Agree On.
Yep.
So, we'll see everybody out at the game. And until next time, I'm Kyle.
I'm Jillian.
We'll see you at the game on Saturday.